I mean, I know we went back around you, but that's a little...
So it was here when I started 2008.
Okay.
Got a lot of copies.
Actually, I think it's if you guys haven't written on the poster,
But today. Like hours went by and I texted her.
We do appreciate it.
I knew it was all of the babies are here. I thought they
Jeremy,
were
go on. Nice to meet you. Okay.
Now, the local people didn't say it because it didn't hit 90 at the airport, but it did at the university. Good enough for me, that show up. On the first 90 degrees, what does Miss Level do?
She brings us ice cream. Nice. Good. I am. I live in Flint Township, actually. Okay. South of Haysboro School District. But I grew up like on the north side. I used to have places like Okay. Yeah, I know where that's at. Oh, really? Yes. Okay. So you see her, she's a children's school. She's in the book too? Yeah. Oh, yeah. You guys are all really down here. Can't take the move.
Where does she work?
She works for that she's another children's person. I don't know if you've ever heard of her. You always have been on this. Yeah, Laura. She's got curly hair.
Then there's somebody from Canada, right?
Yeah, Carolyn. We got the United Nations. We got the United Nations actually. Yeah, she brought us ice cream. That's nice. I always check her meeting. Yeah, that's what I know. And the Jerry is right down the street too. So that's all right. It's okay. I'll take that food. It's okay. I'll take that food. She said she ain't got that many Jerry's. I don't have that many Jerry's like you.
Welcome. Wow, it's so hard to believe that we're all standing here to say farewell to the Gormans. To introduce myself, I'm Kelly Zarnicki, the team librarian here in the loft at ImaginOn. And I wanted to thank you all for coming this afternoon to honor both Beck and Michele, two people that have contributed so much to Charlotte-Mecklenburg Library. And I wanted to go back in time a little bit and talk about when both of them started here at the library. So Beck attended an OCLC conference, and Michele happened to be the speaker. And she was offering some solid general advice working with teens. And the anecdotes included information on ImaginOn's Teen Loft. And Beck was pretty fascinated about that. So when she got home, she couldn't stop thinking about it. And she checked the website on a whim, and lo and behold, there was a job that was posted, but it was closing in 2 days. And she really didn't want to leave her system. She left her coworkers, she didn't necessarily want to move away, and she was in Virginia at this time. But she knew that ImaginOn was a one-of-a-kind opportunity. So she sent her application in, and she found herself invited for an interview. And the day of the interview, she rode the light rail, and she attempted to calm her nerves by chatting up a stranger and getting bad directions. So it should have been a 20-foot walk in a straight line, was a long and circuitous walk from the wrong light rail stop. She didn't think the interview went that great and called her dad afterwards to say that it had flopped and that she was driving back to Richmond. But of course, later that day, she got an offer, and her world was turned upside down. She's worked at 4 branches since, and as hasty as she felt her decision was to come here, she doesn't regret a day of it. And while she's deeply sad to leave the library system behind, she can only hope that Houston will have as many wonderful surprises in store for them. And then looking back at Michele's beginnings, Melanie Huggins, the director of the Richmond Library, shared that Michele and I were at a conference breakfast in the buffet line beside one another, and we exchanged first names. I asked her where she worked and what she did, and she told me she was the teen librarian in Austin. Then very emphatically, she said, "But I really want to work at that library theater thing they're building in Charlotte. That's my dream job." And Melanie said, "Really?" And just as Melanie started to explain who she was, Michele interrupted me and said, "Oh crap, you're that Melanie." So that's our beginnings for Beck and Michele here at Charlotte-Mecklenburg Library. And now we're going to go to our program, and then we're going to invite our featured speakers on the stage, starting with David Singleton and Lee Kiesler, and then following with Lois, and following with Susan Green and Janine Davis. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. I'll have to lean down. Get this microphone. Can I get it up? Hello. I want to say a special thank you to welcome to Miss Gorman, who's here with us tonight, Michele's mom. Very happy to have you here. And of course to Leo and Charlie, who are here with us as well. So if I read this, I won't cry. We're here to honor Michele and Beck for their tremendous contributions and wish them well in a new journey. Michele tells me that she's been here about 9 years now, which is about 3 years longer than I've been here. But the last 9 years, when you think about it, have been a time of really tremendous change for libraries in general, and particularly for this library system here in Mecklenburg County. In many ways, we become national leaders in things like programming, in things like services for people of all ages, in things like customer service, things like technology, and especially in surviving challenging times. I don't think anybody could have survived it better than we did. We're a different library system than we were when Michele started 9 years ago, and when Beck started after that. We're all different people too, partially because of the great and sometimes very challenging work that we've done together, John Shar said it this way: the past is not someplace we're going to, but when we're creating. The path to it is not found, but made. And the activity of making those changes, making them changes both the maker and the destination. I mention this because as you head to Houston, you're different people than you were when you got here. For one thing, you're married. For another thing, you have 2 beautiful children. And you have numerous relationships, friendships that I hope you'll carry with you for a lifetime. I feel very fortunate to work with many wonderful people over the past 25 years in libraries, and I have to say that Michele and Beck are 2 of the best. I know that you've been a huge part of creating the success we've had here in Mecklenburg County, Michele and Beck. And I want to thank you for your contributions, which are too numerous for me to mention up here on this stage. As you head to Houston for the next chapter of your lives, I hope you'll remember your time here with fondness, I hope. And I hope you'll remember both the big things and especially the small things. One of the things I realized many years ago is that sometimes it's the small things that matter more than the big things. Small things like relationships, the times we laugh together. And what I really wanted to do, to tell you the truth, for this presentation is come up here with a black wig on, with sunglasses on my head, with a linen shirt on. And then put a tie in my mouth and pull my hair back and clip it. So, I love you, Michele. It's the mistakes that we make together, and the way that we forgive each other, the encouragement and support that we give to each other. That's what really matters every day. And that's what helps really transform us and make us into, hopefully, better people. Michele and Beck, please know that I thank you for the tremendous contributions that you've made here to the system, and especially for your friendship, for your leadership in small and large ways, and for the relationships, which I know will last a lifetime. Best wishes for a wonderfully happy future in Houston. And remember, you always have a home here at Charlotte-Mecklenburg. Thank you. I think is Lee here? I know he may stop in just a minute. He had a county manager thing they had to go to. Lois Kilka, Associate Director.
Well, about 9 years ago, right about this time, I was sitting in the Dixon boardroom with Melanie Huggins, and we were waiting for this mover and shaker of teen services to come in and have her job interview, because you heard how she decided how she wanted to work here. Well, she was coming in the flesh, and we were sitting there, and Michele comes in. You know, she's got her great sleek black hair and cute little dimples, and she was pulling a suitcase behind her like that. She marches in, you know, and sits down. She has a great interview. Then we get to the point where we ask in the interview, do you have any questions for us? So she turns to me. She already knew Melanie, and I think she trusted Melanie, but I was pretty much an unknown quantity to her. So she gives me her really intense look, and you know that look if you look at her. And she says, I want to know, are you going to have my back? She gave me that look, and I didn't know what to say. But the reason was because I didn't know what to have your back means. I hadn't watched enough cop shows or anything. And so I looked at Michele, you know, kind of blankly, and I said, I don't know what you mean. So I guess I must have eventually responded to the question okay. But one of the rules that Michele has had in my life ever since then is to keep me up on my slang. And so I knew finally that when I heard myself say to somebody one time, I'm down with that. Yes, that's Michele speaking through me. Just saying. Oh boy. I didn't learn until quite a bit later that interview was really eventful for Michele in a totally different way. And that was, she had had her wallet stolen through airport security when she landed, or on her way, I forget which direction. But anyhow, she ended up in Charlotte. All she had was the money that was in her pocket. She had nothing. No credit card, no ID, nothing. So poor Michele was here for the first time in this city with a couple dollars, and she never told Melanie or me or anybody that she didn't have any money or anything. So fortunately, she had already booked the hotel room and she was able to get her plane tickets, but that was kind of not a very good start in Charlotte for Michele, but we were glad that she said yes and that she came back. Well, I've pretty much lived next door to Michele for 9 years now. And so I know what it means for Michele to have somebody's back. For teens, it meant for the first time ever we had a progressive discipline policy because teens need another chance. They don't always make good choices because their brains aren't quite fully wired yet. Who had ever heard of a whole floor of a library where you could only go there if you were 12 to 18, and if you were a grown-up, sorry, you couldn't come in? We've never heard of anything like that before. There was a teen services marketing plan. We suddenly had partnerships with organizations that kept teens safe and engaged. We had the prom project. That was within the first 6 months. In fact, I just looked today at Michele's first 6-month achievements. And of course, it was 2 pages long. And in there, we had prom project. We had several articles that had been written about teen services. We had a lot of partnerships and out-of-school time, things with Time Out Youth. We had already had a Teen Read Week party with 600 attendees, if you can imagine such a thing. We had a re-education of all staff in the library system about how to serve teens. This is not your mama's library, remember that one? If you were here at that time. And we had the beginnings of an infrastructure for serving teens throughout the system. So this was all wonderful. Imagine I was getting off the ground. Teen services at the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Library was starting to increase. But I was viewing all this from one step removed. It was happening, it was great, I was proud of it. But it wasn't until I had a personal reason to call on Michele that suddenly the full impact of what she was doing in teen services hit me. And that was when I had my own teen who came out. And I didn't know exactly what to do. And I knew that if I went to work and I went in Michele's office, I said, Michele, my son just came out, what happens now? That she would totally have my back and his too. Well, in July 2008, something happened in our teen department. We had this applicant. You've heard how she applied as well. This applicant who I think at the time was still at Drexel, maybe finishing a library degree. She had this great resume. I confirmed today that it is Chinese that she's fluent in, and I know that she speaks Spanish because I've heard her do it. And who knows what other kinds of things she can do. So I learned a few things about Beck as well. You know, the theme today is kind of superheroes. And when I look at Michele and Beck, I look at their superpowers. And for Michele, I see her superpower as kind of being able to put on her cape, and then she flies and she goes to what's coming out there ahead. And then she says, you're going to need to do this, or you need this policy, or you need this. If we don't do this, everybody's going to retire and nobody will be left. And so she kind of scouts out to see what's going on out there and lets us know that, you know, when we catch up to her, we will have accomplished all these things. But then I discovered that Beck had a superpower, and her superpower was kind of like X-ray vision, except it was like microscopic vision. And that she could look at anything. She could look at a draft of something. She could look at Michele's latest book. She could look at software. She could look up at the process for summer reading. She could look at anything, and she could find the part where it wasn't working right. And then she would know how to fix it, and she would make it better. It's an amazing superpower. So between the two of them, you go from minuscule to giant. They've got it all covered. As Michele and Beck's relationship grew, it started to get easier for us at work because Michele had a life outside of work. We were so happy. Suddenly we were operating on a more human scale. I had the genuine privilege of playing the piano for Michele and Beck's wedding. And that was just a very, very special time for me. Had the joy of meeting their families. I had already met Carmen once and really enjoyed her, but had the opportunity to meet her again and to see all the family and friends who cherished them and loved them, and to get my first glimpse of Texas. So I know they're going on to something really, really great, really joyous. And I'm just as everybody else, I'm so happy for the future that you have there, even if we are only a distant part of it. But we went through a lot of good times and bad times together, and some of those David has alluded to. We had really a life-changing experience with the reductions in force. Anybody who went through that will never forget what that was like. But then we had the rebuilding possibility. And we watched youth services grow, the library system grow and thrive and get better and leaner. We got to watch the twins grow from their earliest moments until seeing them now and seeing Leo walking and Charlie not far behind. That's right, I'm talking about you. We've had some good-natured teasing. I keep telling Michele that no, people who are my age don't want to be called seniors. No, we don't want large print books. We want to do something fun and cultural, and we're not that much different than anybody else. She tells me things like, "Are you still using MapQuest?" I know, I'm always afraid for Michele to see what's on my computer. But I did show you something one time. I did. So, Michele and Beck, as you go forward to exercise your superpowers in a new place, I hope you know that everybody in this room has your backs and that we love you.
Can I just say that I was at Jason Hyde's facilitation class this morning,
And he said, whatever you do, if you're going to ever use a microphone, you need to have them give you a sound check. Nobody told me I was going to be using a microphone. So here it goes. I didn't know Beck when she started at the library, but I knew that name. Beck Buck. Who is that? And someone would be saying blah, 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 Beck Buck, and I'd say, who is that? Who has a name like that? And oh, she's a librarian at ImaginOn, and that's all I knew, but I knew that name. Well, then we had the rifts. And at some point I became aware that Beck had been one of the people who had been riffed. A little bit of time goes by, and I am put on a hiring team because we're ready to start hiring back to open the regionals 6 days a week. And I was on the team that hired back librarians. We hired 8 librarians at that time, and one of them was Beck. And so I saw her interview, and so now I had a person with the name. But she was assigned, oh, and so I had, took a little bit of credit for hiring Beck Buck back. But she was assigned to Maine, and I was at Morrison, so I didn't know a lot about her still, but what happened was her reputation started to grow. I knew her manager, Claudia, at Maine, and managers talk about employees. If you don't think so, you need to think again. But we talk about outstanding employees. And so I was learning that Beck was highly intelligent. I heard that she was techie. And I heard that she was a very solid employee. So those are the things I knew. And then I heard that she married Michele Gorman. And so that went into the little package I knew about Beck. And then I found out she was pregnant with twins. So that was my package that I knew about Beck. I knew Michele, we had started working on some teams together. And then through a miracle of timing, I like to think about it, Eric Hartman, our part-time librarian at Morrison, took a full-time job at South County. And so we had an open part-time librarian position. And I was at a meeting with Michele, and she pulled me aside. And she said, Beck and I are thinking that maybe she would like that part-time job at your branch. You know, this way she could be home with the babies, but she could keep her hand in libraries. And what do you think? And I was like, yes, pick us, pick us. So she said, well, we're going to talk about it some more, but we will let you know. I went back to the branch, and I went up and I found Ed McDonald, our lead librarian, and I said, Beck might want to come and be at our branch. And he was like, oh, wow, that'd be nice. And for Ed, that is the height of excitement. So we were excited. But what he said was the idea that we could have someone of Beck's caliber as part-time blew our minds. Well, sure enough, we got the call that she did want to come and be our part-time librarian. So this is one of my indelible memories I will never forget. Because I called HR and I said, this is just a transfer, right? She's already a librarian. She's coming to be a librarian just part-time. She's going to cut her hours and her pay in half. And so this is a transfer, right? And this is the answer, quote, if she was married to just some librarian out of Mid-Hill, we could do it. But she's married to a deputy director. So she's going to have to go in and do the whole shebang. I told Michele later, if you could have been just some librarian out of Mid-Hill, she would have not had to do that. But, okay, the whole shebang. So she sent an updated resume. It was up to the minute, so I know she spent time working on it. We did pull her out of the pool for an interview, but we interviewed other people too, and we decided between ourselves we had to go whole hog. So she had the whole star interview, and she came out on top. So she came then onto our team. And I read a phrase in a book one time, and when I think of how she came and slid onto our Morrison team like a seal slides into water. It was smooth, it was graceful, it was like she had always been there. And in just a little bit of time, I would be talking about her and someone would go, oh yeah, she's at Morrison. I'm like, yeah, Like, she's always, oh no, she's only been here a little while, you're right. And then I learned that her character matches her reputation. I learned that she is extremely intelligent. But the thing I hadn't realized, I know this is going to be hard, but is her passion, her commitment to libraries. I had not seen that until I got to be next to her in a library working with our patrons. She also, I learned, is such a solid employee. When she is there, she is there. Everything else going on in her life, including 2 babies growing, and she was still, when she was at work, she was at work. There would be times when people would call, I'm not going to be here, or I'm going to be late, and I would be going upstairs to look at the schedule, and you know how you're going through your head, let's see who's here, what do I have to do today, can I be up here, who can we pull from CERT, and I'd get up and I would pick up the schedule and say, oh, Beck is here. Ooh, everything relaxes. I knew we were good. But all of you know that she contributed far more than what she contributed to the branches. And I decided to write this down because I couldn't possibly remember all of it. These are her contributions to our system. She restarted and led the Library Loft team for the first few years, creating a new WordPress site under Direct Teen Services control. Now listen to this. She continued volunteering some with the site after being rigged. And she now serves as its technical advisor. While at ImaginOn, she also served on the teen summer reading team and ImaginOn's Teen Voices team, a collaboration between the theater and the library. And she planned and coordinated the system's homeschool Battle of the Books program. She briefly served on the Drupal internet team right before the RIFs. After returning to the library, she co-led the brilliant and re-envisioned adult summer reading team for 2 years, that team that brought adult summer reading to life. And she served on an early e-reader education planning group, as well as the first adult programming quick team, which ultimately led to her working with the division leads to coordinate the program catalog revamps for all the divisions, which I happen to know she did a lot on her couch at home in the middle of the night. She is just finishing up with the Digital Strategy Project Steering Committee. When she came back from maternity leave, the first thing she said is, do you think I can get on that digital strategy team? And I knew she belonged on it. So sure enough, they had room for her. But I thought she belonged on the steering committee. And fortunately, an opening opened up. And we got her right on to that steering committee. And right up till yesterday or the day before, she was working with that team. I learned about Beck that she speaks IT. And she would send in these IT tickets, and I'd see them, and I was like, what? And all I could do was email her back and say, did you get an answer to this? And if so, do you understand it? In April of this year, she submitted a recommendation which has been implemented for marketing the library's 10,000 book challenge. Her suggestion was to make the same short link work on the website as well as be used for a hashtag on Twitter. Now, who even thinks about that? But that's the way she thinks and that's the way she talks. I learned about Beck that she is a first-class librarian geek. And I say that with all the respect and awe that I can give you. It's a gift you've given me, because I guess we're not seniors, but we're old. We cut our teeth on card catalogs and periodical indexes. And so we've become technology adopters. But I saw a quote of Steve Jobs just the other day, and he said, old people sit down and say, what is it? And young people sit down and say, what can I do with it? And that's the difference between you and me. You put an old librarian in front of new technology and we're like, click, and now, oh, what did I do? And you and your librarian geeks get in there, you're leaning in and you're clicking away, and what does this do and how will this work? And if it doesn't work, you know the words to say why it's not working and make the suggestions. Old librarians like me, it's been a scary time for us because we hear all the detractors. And they talk about this institution that we love so much and we have dedicated our careers to. And we hear, we don't need libraries anymore. We don't need to pay for them anymore. Nobody's reading anymore. Everything's on. We hear those things, and it's frightening. And what I've learned about you and what you have given me is that you are fearless and that you are not going to let libraries go. You and your geeks are going to be out there leading us and taking us. And it's a gift, Beck, and I just so
You know what? I think you interviewed me. Did you interview? I think you interviewed me. Also,
So three of the six are here. And I know it. I'm just noticing now. Check out my employee spotlight. Did you see that? I got Mecklenburg County and the employee spotlight. So I'm the first one. I'm the library employee. So that's what you did.
Thank you for everything. Thank you. We're just videotaping. No, we're audience.
Sorry. Wait, yeah, I was trying to figure out how you got this thing to work, because when I looked at it before, it wasn't in operational condition. It just suddenly works.
Yeah, so maybe the battery was used. I have no clue. Where are you guys going? So we're making a break for it.
Rocket Man burning on his feet. Mars ain't the kind of place to raise your kids. It's
Oh, I like the off-shoulder look, Charlie. Over there. You tell us about it.
Was it now? Is it real now? Is it like real now? Not yet.
I don't know. It won't be real until
I'm trying to take what I have back with me. Nice. Nice.
Mountain cedar is what's around Fort Worth. Oh, I'm telling you, I walk outside my backyard and all of a sudden, you can hear it. I'll just start forgetting.